This is Lisa McGinnis, editor of Ocala Magazine and host of Ocala Magazine Radio. Join me every Friday at 10 a.m. when we bring the pages of Ocala Magazine to life. There's only one Ocala Magazine and only one source for local news talk radio. Tune in Friday at 10 a.m. right here on 1370 a.m. and 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Hooray for all the moms in our lives.
Right from the start, she was the one who nurtured you and supported you in every pursuit.
This year, you are going to cater to her.
Call Honey Baked Ham at 352-861-0011 and order all her favorites.
If it's just the two of you or the whole family, this is her day.
And Honey Baked Ham makes it easy for you to pamper mom.
Now call 352-861-0011.
Or stop by 2709 Southwest 27th Avenue behind Best Buy.
I'm Jennifer McCullough, the Executive Director at Palm Garden of Ocala. May is the most exciting month of the year for us. The week before Mother's Day is Nurses Week, and I would like to shout out a big thank you to all of our nurses who care for our precious residents and guests. They are led by Sharon Baker, our Director of Clinical Services, and Aldo Perez, our nurse practitioner. The week after Mother's Day is National Nursing Home Week. Why not stop in and visit us soon? We are located at the corner of Southwest 27th Avenue and 34th Street.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock, you might have heard us talking to Dr. Ken Redcross in the past. He's been a guest on this show quite a number of times, actually. He's a board-certified internal medicine physician. He's a contributor to the TV shows The Doctors, Nancy Grace, The Insider, E! Entertainment Television, and the founder of Redcross Concierge. And he's a contributor to the most powerful radio show in America, which is called AM Ocala Live with Larry and Robin every morning right here on WOCA. It's an amazing thing.
I agree with you. That's the best.
Good morning, Ken. How are you? Good to hear from you.
Good morning, guys. Happy Monday.
Yeah, you got a handsome picture of yourself on your site. I'm using it as my my screenshot here for the video. What do you?
Oh my gosh.
Podcast. Yeah.
Aren't camera tricks? Camera tricks are the best. Wonderful. Covers all the mistakes.
Hey, every day, almost every day, it seems like there's a story in the news about medicine, and I don't always have somebody I can kind of get a free bit of information from. But can I ask you one thing that was in the news this morning?
Absolutely.
All right. There was the thing in the news this morning, and I wish I had it in front of me so I could read it to you directly, but I can tell you. It said that the daily aspirin regimen that a lot of people do for heart condition, whatever, can also be connected to melanoma. Have you ever heard that before?
You know, those studies have kind of been back and forth, and we're talking about this because today is Melanoma Day, and so there's a lot of awareness that needs to be discussed. And so, you know, studies have kind of been back and forth with that, and I'm always a little nervous there, Larry, because we know that aspirin is beneficial for so many things, especially for heart health and some of the other issues, stroke health. So, you know, once again, the studies are kind of back and forth, but just something that we all need to make sure we have a discussion around with our doctors.
So it sounds like what you're saying is our hunch is always take everything with a grain of salt, as they say, not with a real grain of salt.
No, not a real grain of salt. We don't want high blood pressure out there. So no, we want to avoid that. But you're absolutely right. So, you know, you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt and reach out to your doc. Have this discussion because each one of us are different.
All right, my topic that your topic that I have on my notes here: do not ignore overlooked pain. What would be like if you had it for a day and it goes away? Do you say, okay, never mind, or even with 1 day of pain, do you worry about it?
No, guys. So you're right. I mean, we all have our little aches and pains that we go through each and every day as we all are getting a little older. But the point is that it should be persistent, 2, 3, or 4 days, and it's not responding to typical medications. Yeah, you have to give us a call because there are things that we do and we kind of overlook, not recognizing that they can really be big problems in the future.
Do you think that's due to lifestyle?
Robin, it really is, and it just depends to all of us. I mean, I travel a fair amount, and even I had been guilty of overlooking some things that I probably shouldn't, which made me really come upon this topic and share with everyone out there. So you're right, it's very lifestyle dependent.
Let's see. So if you have a pain and you go to the doctor and the doctor diagnoses it as something that you have to live with.
Right.
In other words, if you had a gallbladder infection, well, that's going to be something they deal with right away. But if it's some kind of arthritis or something, this is something we have to live with. Am I right about that?
No, you're right. But, the reason why I thought that this was such a great topic, especially as we're getting into the spring, even though I know, well, at least us, I know it's always beautiful down there with you guys, but, there are some things that we do when the spring comes around, and even without that, such as texting all the time. One of the things that you'll see in your office with patients is that they'll come in with neck pain, and you'll get a little bit deeper into their history, and then you later find out that they are big texters, and you realize that up to 70% of us can get neck pain from just texting all day. So those are things that we really want to be cognizant of.
We do text a lot, don't we? I wonder why we do that. What is it about? Are you a psychiatrist? Can you answer that one? What?
No, I'm not. I don't play one on TV, but I'll tell you this. One of the interesting things here is that one of the things I've been doing is making sure that you hold your phone up at eye level, because that'll help with the neck pain. Another thing I like to do, too, I speak into my phone a lot, which are also kind of verbally dictated, so that I'm not texting so much, so that I can avoid some of that neck pain that so many of us are having.
So will that, since that might decrease the neck pain, will that non-hunching then stop maybe the formation of your spine becoming curved, and then as you grow older you'll start hunching over and walking that way?
Well, you're right, because the thing there, Robin, is that you don't want to start having problems as far as with the disc. Lots of times you'll get a neck strain, and a neck strain can get worse, because it really is all about posture at the end of the day. You can even set your phone maybe to just give you a quick alarm every 5 or 10 minutes, just to allow you to kind of unhunch your shoulders, move your neck back and forth, do those type of things just to be a little more vigilant when we're using our cell phones all day.
So what kind of things are people coming to you for that are in the pain category? Are they like sports injuries or just overuse movement, that kind of things? I mean, aside from the infection and things like that, what are we doing to ourselves?
Well, one of the bigger things that patients are coming in with, because like I said, we're kind of breaking here in New York. The spring is here, and back pain is a big one. Now, back pain is a common complaint just in general, but this time of year, it tends to be because everyone's out in their gardens. It's funny because when you ask people, you recognize that gardening feels like a contact sport when you see all the injuries that people come in with. I mean, there was a study out of the UK that said that 70% of people who garden actually end up having some sort of pain. But one of the bigger ones that I typically see is that of back pain, because you're in so many weird positions. I don't know if you guys are gardeners, but how many times have you lifted soil, you lifted pots, and you're not lifting properly and in all these awkward positions? So you have to be careful.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, I'm not a gardener really, but I did plant an apple tree seed, and it is growing. Yeah. So.
But I can understand what you're saying, because I don't have flowers on the outside, but I've got these pots on my porch, and then we've got a bird bath, so you have to empty the bird bath every day and scrub it and bend down and clean it and everything like that. So I never realized that.
No, it's work. And so, for all of you guys who either are gardeners or like yourself have flowers, let's make sure we think about it as a sport. I'm a big sport guy, so let's make an analogy. So before you get out there in that garden, let's make sure that we're warming up, whatever that may be, whether that's running in place, jumping jacks, bending, stretching. Let's make sure that we do that. The other thing, too, is you want to make sure you give yourself some breaks in between, because a lot of times gardeners, they love it, and they'll get out there for an hour at a time, guys, and you don't want that. You want to kind of break it up, maybe into 20 to 30-minute intervals. The other thing is we're talking about pain. And you guys may recall, I like to stay a little bit closer to the earth whenever I talk about pain. I'm not a prescription fan, or a fan of prescriptions, I should say. So one of the things I talk to patients about is there's a muscle cream that's either a gel or a cream, actually, that's called Arnicare. Now, it comes from Arnica montana, which is also called the mountain daisy. So I kind of like that analogy because everyone realizes, like, okay, doc, we're staying closer to the earth, which will help with our pain, swelling, and bruising. So think of alternatives, everyone, besides NSAIDs or anything that needs a prescription. And NSAIDs are the ibuprofen and aspirin. They're great and they're fine, but let's try to hold off of those if we can.
I just tried to spell it out. Is it Arnicare? A-R-N-I care? Arnicare?
Yes, A-R-N-I care. You know, the funny thing is that Arnica montana is the actual active ingredient, which has been around for a couple of 100 years, but you'll also hear it for those who are having maybe even plastic surgery, because you get bruising with plastic surgery lots of times, and Arnicare has a role there too. So we're talking for quick relief of pain, and so that's why I mentioned something like Arnicare to patients, and some other things that we can actually grow in our garden that can make a huge difference to help our pain without a prescription.
All right. While we're talking, we had a text message on our Facebook page. Can you talk about plantar? How do you say it? Fasciitis? Plantar
fasciitis.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So plantar fasciitis, everyone. It's also called runner's heel. So let's do this. Let's try to envision in the bottom of our foot, there is all of this tissue, connective tissue, that's called fascia. It looks very silvery, and it's very much like a spider web, and it goes into the back of our heel. So that becomes inflamed, especially when you're running and you're pounding all day. Now, not only do runners get plantar fasciitis, some of us who don't have necessarily running as part of our regimen can also get it. It's a little bit poorly understood, but the key is this. There are some things that let you know that you're dealing with it. Number one, it feels almost like there's a nail in the middle of your foot. So obviously it's extremely painful. But the other kind of telltale sign is it usually is more pain, guys, when you're starting to run. So that initiation really hurts, but then you get running and everything kind of goes away until you stop again. Hence, it tends to be overlooked because a lot of runners like to plow through the pain because they're training for something. But this is something you don't want to plow through because this can cause a problem long term also.
Oh, wow. So does the Arnicare or any cream, would it help?
Well, in this case, it depends, because Arnicare is something else. It's so funny, guys, because another patient had mentioned that to me as well. Now, I've had some patients who get benefits with Arnicare with that as well, but typically, I'm not necessarily thinking about connective tissue as much as I am actual muscular pain when I talk about Arnicare.
Now you have runners out there that since it becomes springtime and everything, they're beginners and they think they should just take off from their driveway and run like 1.5 miles or 2 miles. But that's really a bad thing, right? You should train and work up to it.
You have to, Robin. You have to take everything nice and slowly. Just like we were talking about gardening, you want to obviously warm up. You don't have any elite athletes, or forget elite, just any athletes in general, that don't warm up before you get your muscles ready to exercise. The good thing, though, at least with plantar fasciitis, is that there are a few things you can do. Number one, you want to get better footwear. Number two, think about some of those silicone gel inserts, and not just for the arch, but also for the heels, because they make some really good ones there also. And then you can even talk to your doc about getting you a prescription for the therapist, because there are some exercises you can do with your ankles and with your feet to try to strengthen them as well, especially if you're going to be running.
Okay, your knees, right?
So you mentioned the inserts, and you think they work?
Yeah, they do. Actually, there's really good studies with that. And in fact, the ones that I saw in the studies were typically those that were silicone gel. I guess it just gave a lot more shock absorption. They also mentioned that when you buy your running shoes, feel the back of the heel and see how much support you really get in the heel, because that's where you really want to protect when you're running, especially for long-distance runners also.
Do you run? Are you a runner?
I do. It's funny. I was a cross-country runner when I was in high school, but now I'm a CrossFitter. So in CrossFit, we do a lot of running and a lot of different exercises. So I definitely practice what I preach.
Oh, really? My son does a lot of this stuff. He runs all the time. And he always participates in these...
Like the Savage Race.
Yeah, whatever they're called. The ones we...
Oh, Spartan races.
Yeah, the Spartan races.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. Yeah, you would...
No, I'd love them too, but you got to be careful. A lot of injuries.
You wouldn't think he was my son, because I probably could go maybe from here to the other side of the room. So that's about as far as...
Oh, my gosh, sir. We have to talk offline there. We have to work on that.
All right,
Robin, I hope you're better than Larry in there, Robin.
Sort of, not too much. I'm pretty sedentary.
All right, so tell me about the things in the garden. Mint is on my list here. What does mint do for you?
Yeah, guys. So, all right. So when you think about mint has menthol. We've all heard of menthol throughout the years, whether it be for the sore throat and so forth. But the reason why we're talking about it here is because we know that mint helps with muscle spasms. It's another reason why I'll have patients who come in with this kind of abdominal pain. They'll have irritable bowel syndrome. Now we know that there may be a role for peppermint oil for those who are open to alternative ways of healing. So we know that peppermint is something that is so easy. Well, I should say mint. It's so easy to grow in our garden. It's almost like a weed. It's so easy, and so you can get some medicinal benefits there.
How much was a mint julep when you got one the other day at the Kentucky Derby?
Was $4.95.
Ooh, that mint is expensive.
The mint julep.
Gosh, we need to go into business together, guys.
All right, are you want another text message? We got another one.
Sure, please.
Oh my gosh, where'd it go again? Oh, I just lost it. Oh, what did it say? Oh my gosh.
I don't know. It's on your side of the world.
Oh, I'll find it. Talk about hot peppers or something. I'll find it.
All right, hot peppers. You've hit my favorite one, Larry and Robin. That's my favorite. I'm a big lover of spicy foods, but what makes it spicy, guys, is capsaicin. Capsaicin is what's in there, and the point is that it helps to kind of decrease the stimulation you get at the nerve endings that cause pain. So that's why they actually help. And you'll see capsaicin. I like to personally get it out of the peppers themselves, but you'll see it over the counter as a cream you can rub on your joints. You can rub on your muscles as well. So it's something else that can really provide some good benefit. And the cool thing is that we can grow all of these, guys. We have a medicine cabinet in our backyards that we can take advantage of.
And that's probably the way our founding fathers, or whatever you want to say, I don't necessarily mean of this country, but I mean of the human race. That's probably how they did it once upon a time, right? They probably, isn't that where aspirin comes from? Isn't it from a tree or something?
Yeah, it's funny because aspirin is something for years, guys. We didn't even know the mechanism of action. We just knew that it worked. And so you're right. So since our beginning of time, we've been looking at things such as herbals and things that are coming up out of the earth that we need to nurture a little more to really get the benefit of health and healing. And I'm so happy that it seems like everyone's kind of waking up a bit and they're actually preferring those things instead of the prescription. So it's even better.
Oh, yeah, I would too, yeah.
And what do you think about people should pay more attention to the actual painful areas, because sometimes you hear that phrase referred pain, and that's really not where it's coming from.
Yeah, and that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that too, Robin, because referred pain, everyone that Robin is talking about, is that even though the pain feels like it's in the abdomen, it could be coming from somewhere else. So that's when it becomes extremely important to, number one, have that perfect relationship with your doctor so that you have time to talk about the history of how the pain started. And that takes time in a good relationship, and that's something I'm very passionate about.
I always think about my dog when I hear about referred pain. I would scratch her ear and she would kick her leg. It was like, wow. That is a crazy thing. All right.
That's referred joy. That doesn't count there. They love that.
Referred joy. All right, I couldn't find it, but the person wrote me back. Fibromyalgia. Can you give any ideas of what to do about that pain?
Oh, wow. All right, guys. So fibromyalgia. So for those who go through fibromyalgia, I have to give every one of you a big hug because it's been such a long time in the medical community before we finally stood up and recognized that it is real. You'll have patients who have pain and what we call trigger points all around the body. And there's even a map you can see kind of where you're touched or pressed where it actually does hurt. So the good thing with fibromyalgia, guys, I typically go a little bit more of a spiritual route. There are some medications that may be of help that, once again, can be written, but we talk a lot about some of the spiritual components, whether it be meditation or yoga. Those are things that I find a lot of people get better with fibromyalgia. And so, it's something to think about. But, yeah, there are some things that your doc can talk to you about if those sort of things are not helpful in the beginning.
And how about hydration? Because we're all confused as to what we should really drink to keep the body hydrated.
Yeah, one of the things I tell patients, because each and every one of us are different. You remember when we were kids, they'd say, 7 glasses of water, and everyone's like, okay, is that 8 ounces? They typically say 8 ounces, but not everyone knows what 8 ounces looks like. So what I tell everyone is I want to make sure that when you're urinating, I want your urine to be clear. Because if your urine is clear, then I know that we are perfectly hydrated. If it's concentrated or yellow, then we're a little bit behind the 8 ball. So that's what I do, because that way everyone can kind of measure that. It's a little bit easier than figuring out what 4 ounces and 8 ounces are in a glass.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad you answered the way you did. When I heard you say what I want you to do when you're urinating, I was worried.
You're like, this is going off the rails.
I didn't know what we were going to do.
Well, Larry had this one story this morning. A woman had to go in for a drug test, so she put some of her urine in a container and went to the convenience store and put it in the microwave to heat it up so she could sneak it in there, and it didn't work. It exploded, and it was pretty bad.
Oh my!
news.
Oh golly!
Very bad news.
Well, I was not going that direction, guys.
No, we have really interesting news here. When we read things like mint or hot peppers on things, and then we go, let's say, to the health food store, and there's a pill or a liquid that claims it has those things in it. I mean, I always say, why don't I just go to the farm, not to the pharmacy, but to the farm, or to the
I like that,
or the farmer's market. And you know what I mean? Do you agree, or do?
I do. You want to get the most pure source that you can. And look, and I recognize we are all so busy. I think we've even talked about that before, just how everyone's busy and everyone feels the S word, which is stress. I don't know. I've decided 2018 I'm not going to say stress anymore. Only call it the S word. But you're right. We need to all be going right to the store and getting this stuff fresh. And like I said, these are things we're talking about. We can actually grow them in our garden. The other two we didn't even mention, ginger and turmeric. Once again, these are things that we can get in our garden and figure out how to make salads out of it and get it that way instead of out of a pill.
All right, now turmeric. I don't understand that one. Is it cumin or is it turmeric? Is it the same thing? What is that? Is that the stuff you get at an Indian restaurant? What is that?
Yeah. It's the base of a lot of Indian cuisine, once again, for thousands of years. Now, curcumin is the active ingredient in turmeric that actually has all of the anti-inflammatory properties which help with our pain. Now, there was an interesting study, and I can't cite it, so I'll just mention that it was a study that I went through that said that it may be helpful for inflammation even in the brain, and that's a big deal too because we're all concerned about dementia and we're learning more. So turmeric is a wonderful base. Now, not everyone necessarily likes turmeric. I know there's a little bit of an aggressive flavor for some, and so I usually talk about maybe even just sprinkling it on your food instead of the actual roots, or even shaving a little bit in some of your salads as well.
Okay, so you just answered my question. That's a root, then. That's the ugly thing in the produce section.
Well, yeah, it's not the cutest. It's not the cutest one vegetable out there, no. But I'll tell you, and that's another one that I will say honestly. If you wanted to get that in powder form, it tends to be just as efficacious, or in other words, effective. Also, if that works for some people, if you want to put it on chicken or meat, if that's your thing, or even your vegetables, you can still get the benefits of turmeric.
And a lot of people are going to gluten-free, and a lot of people are turning over to soy.
Yeah, and soy is interesting here because when you talk about something else that could potentially be in some people's garden, it's edamame. And edamame has a soy protein in it, and that also was shown in a study to potentially be helpful for knee pain due to arthritis. So soy is interesting. I know it goes back and forth because some people have different issues with why they don't take soy, but there is some benefit here potentially for those who are having some joint pains.
So that's how you pronounce it, edamame?
Edamame, yes.
A funny pronunciation.
Say that 3 or 4 times fast, right?
All right. One more. This is about shingles. Do you have anything to help with shingles?
Oh, all right. Well, I'll tell you this. So I'll say 2 things. So the first thing is, number 1, we have a shingles vaccine now, everyone, that is better than the first one that we have. It's very effective. So number 1, when you hear this, please call your doctor. Make sure you're within that age group, which is around 50 to 55 now, where most insurances will cover it. So give a call. Then on the flip side, so we do have some things that are prescribed that's very beneficial. And I'm mentioning that here, guys, because even though I'm Western trained, and you've heard me talk a lot about some of the Eastern ways of healing, we do know that some things on the Western side are just better or more effective. And especially when someone has shingles, it's extremely painful. So you don't want to necessarily play around with that. And so we do have a prescription that can be very beneficial. It's a few pills a day for 7 days. But once again, it really helps you and helps relieve some of that pain.
So I want to make sure the listeners have the information to get the information. So we'll start with your website. It's drredcross.com, correct?
It is, absolutely, drredcross.com. And Facebook is Ken Redcross MD.
Okay.
And Twitter is @Dr. Redcross.
Okay. And what about these other things? Is there a website for anything else we've mentioned today?
What I'm doing is I'm making sure that my team has this stuff on my website and also on my social media links. And the two links that we talked about, I'm probably also going to send some more information. And to anyone out there listening, and I know you maybe couldn't get through, I love meeting new people. If you want to figure out one of those platforms, I'll do my best to reach out and answer your questions. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Very good. Dr. Ken Redcross, always good to hear from you. You do great work. And I, by the way, personally love the fact that you understand Eastern medicine and integrate it with Western medicine. I think I don't like when one person says this is the way to do it or that's the way to do it. You look at it both sides and kind of mix them together. So.
Yeah, I think it's only fair, and I appreciate you guys allowing me to share that with everyone.
Thank you, Doctor. Stay well and come back.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a blessed day, everyone.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
Jennifer McCullough, the Executive Director at Palm Garden of Ocala. May is the most exciting month of the year for us. The week before Mother's Day is Nurses Week, and I would like to shout out a big thank you to all of our nurses who care for our precious residents and guests. They are led by Sharon Baker, our Director of Clinical Services, and Aldo Perez, our nurse practitioner. The week after Mother's Day is National Nursing Home Week. Why not stop in and visit us soon? We are located at the corner of Southwest 27th Avenue and 34th Street.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. On this Monday, partly sunny and quite nice with a high of 83 along the coast, 89 inland. Mainly clear Monday night, lows in the mid to upper 50s and some inland spots, about 69 along the coast. Partly sunny Tuesday, the high again 83 at the coast, 89 inland. Wednesday, mostly sunny, high 82 at the coast, 88 inland. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Lillian Wu, the president telling West Virginians voting in tomorrow's GOP primary, pick anyone but Don Blankenship, tweeting.
Don Blankenship